Like you can't Google like CRO top 5 pain points I'm facing today. Like you're just going to get the same thing that everyone else is going to give you.
And what's like the aspiration for you and for your business?
So we want to be the biggest, best go-to-market operations company in London. Then we want to go to New York and expand there. As a sales leader, one of the things you need to figure out is like, do you want to do outreach manually yourself, or are you trying to automate all of it?
How do you see sales evolving over the next 3-5 years?
So I think...
Yeah, hi Leo, welcome to the latest episode of Funnel Vision. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you, Richard. How about yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you. I appreciate we met maybe 2-3 months back. We had an event with Curvo, and we had various sales leaders talking about the future of sales, etc. I think we got in conversation because you couldn't find where the beer was, if I remember rightly. And then we had a conversation about what you do, and there was maybe a bit of overlap and just general interest as the founder of the Playbook Agency. Yeah. Obviously, you know, it's a new business, but an exciting area. Maybe you could just expand a little bit on your journey to get to the Playbook Agency, and then we'd sort of dig into a bit more about what you do now.
Amazing, thank you. So I've been in SaaS sales for about 5-6 years now. I started off as the first commercial employee at a company called Salesflow. Again, like everyone else did, stumbled into sales, didn't think anything of it, just went into it. Luckily, and I got a bit lucky there, as I got into the business started to grow. Yep. And with that growth, I started to grow within the business. So I worked up my way from an SDR, AE, and then into a head of sales. And then from that head of sales positioning, I was running a sales team of about 7 to 8 people.
Yep.
And then from there, I always had this chip on my shoulder that I always wanted to start a business. And so I left Salesflow and I went to an incubator program called Antler. Okay. And in that incubator program, I was with the brightest minds, the McKinsey consultants, the finance, the bankers, everything there. And no one in that area knew how to do outbound sales or these processes, the lead generation. I was like, hold on, there's no way me, who finished school with C's, knew something that these guys didn't know. Yeah. That was super valuable when it comes to business. So from there, me and my co-founder, we had a small consultancy business where we were just coaching AEs, junior AEs, in particular SMB AEs, how to run the sales process, how to run the sales cycle. And then what happened is that evolved into a lead generation agency. And then within that lead generation agency, what we were doing is using a lot of AI within our processes.
Yeah.
And so we got first-hand experience on how to use GPT, how to use AI credits, using tools like Clay, etc. And then as the rest of the market started to catch up on these tools, they wanted it in-house themselves. And so then we've pivoted into a AI revenue implementation service, and that's why we're here today.
Okay, fascinating. There's quite a lot in there to like. I'm going to go back a bit, and you said you stumbled into sales. How come you entered sales?
It's just a bit of luck. I had a friend whose brother was starting a business, and I was unemployed at the time. It was in Oxford, so I didn't have to move anywhere. Okay. And I just thought, okay, why not? And then got into it, and then still didn't have any clue. And because it was such a small business, there wasn't any onboarding documentation, so it was very like learning on the job.
Yeah.
Made loads of errors, like so many errors that you wouldn't believe. Like I probably would have fired myself back then. Yeah. And grew from there.
And you said you were lucky. I mean, I guess there's a bit of humbleness there as well, isn't it? But you obviously had done massively well at that relatively young age, to progress from SDR through to head of sales. What did you do that was perhaps different to your peers at that time after that lucky start?
Yeah, you know, I think I just learnt the industry and I learnt the product inside out. So every time I used to jump on calls with our target accounts, target prospects, I just position myself to know 10 times, 3 times more than them.
Yeah.
That every call just ended up being a consultation. I didn't know the sales fundamentals. I didn't know the discovery, all these like impact metrics, all of that stuff. I was just doing it just off the off chance. But because I knew the industry and product so well, the questions I was asking were just curious. Like, hey, like, how is your agency running today? Like, what tools are you using? Where's the bottlenecks? And then from there, that's where I learned that piece in terms of what I did differently compared to other competitors, other sales reps, is that I just knew the space inside out and I knew what to ask them. I knew my ICP really well.
Okay. No, that's interesting. I think there's quite a lot of data coming out at the moment, aren't there? And just in terms of the absolute importance of ICP, I think I saw some yesterday of saying they're sort of 8 times more likely to win deals if you focus on a very clean ICP. And I know that's part of what you're doing at Playbook Agency. So I'd like to kind of expand a bit more on that in a mo. Just on the Antler piece, what did you learn from there other than spotting that niche opening?
I think what I learned really was, aside from, let's say, the sales stuff, like what founder fit is, what it means to have really good founder fit in the market that you're selling, what it means to be in the VC space, what the VCs want to hear. I come from a bootstrap background, so the business I was in was all bootstrap, so everything was very customer first, revenue. It was never the vision. It was just like, hey, let's make sure that our customers are happy. We're solving a big problem. And then, I guess, for me personally, it was almost like it was more like a confidence boost for myself. What I learned, I was like, okay, cool. I have a really, really high value skill set. I need to just double down on that, and I need to make sure that I can, do something with it. And that was it.
Okay, cool. So from there, obviously, you started the Playbook Agency. Is that a bootstrapped business, or
bootstrap business. I think with agencies, right, they're hard to raise. It's hard to raise money, but I think I always wanted to be bootstrap anyway for now. Given that it's important to really nail down and focus on the fundamentals, which is customers and revenue.
Okay. And what is sort of your ICP and what's unique about your business?
So our ICP they have three different ICPs right now, which is founder-led businesses that have about $1 million in revenue, but then they don't have the team, they don't have the SDR team, or they don't have the marketing team to generate leads.
Yeah.
And what we find with them is like, hey, we're just an accelerant of what you've built so far, rather than trying to help you figure out what you need to build. So that's our first ICP, which is founder-led businesses, strong product market fit, but just haven't got the resources to scale, maybe not even the patience to go outbound, where a lot of them rely on referrals, etc.
Yeah.
The second ICP right now, which is other small sales teams. So there's two things from the small sales teams. Do they just need leads? Do they just need contacts? Do they just need the ability to action the data? And so what we can provide to them is just leads as a service. Okay. And so that's just like a
definition of small, like
1 to 3 salespeople. So so very small businesses that just need leads. They don't have the patience for the tooling. They have the SDRs, etc.
No BDR, RevOps,
And then the next one is what I call the Series A up until Series C. Ideally SaaS companies, but we're starting to see more traditional B2B businesses going in, especially now this AI has accelerated internal objectives, internal missions to basically make them more AI driven as a business. So right now we're focused between Series A to Series C software companies that have marketing departments, that have sales departments, that have full cycle AEs. And what we find now is as AEs are starting to go more full cycle, they don't have the patience to prospect like they used to, or prospect like you would be able to back in the day, where you could enroll a couple leads in a sequence and get a response. So what we're finding is like we give those AEs a lot of efficiency gain by making sure that we automate a lot of the list building, the enablement piece. And then in the marketing department, what we find is they actually own a lot of these initiatives, typically runs with the marketing team as well. So they need the TAM mapped account tiering. They need to know who they're running ads to. They need to know who to pass off to sales, and so on.
Okay, so in that instance, it's very much a very focused outreach against sort of go-to-market initiatives from marketing to kind of underpin the sales and give them a bit more kind of economy of scale, as well as that boost the inbound inquiries and leads. Yeah,
correct.
Is that right? Cool. Okay, and your focus is very much kind of go-to-market engineering, etc. That's obviously quite a big buzzword. How would you define like what the role of a go-to-market engineer and what you're doing?
So, I have opinions on this, but I think there's two elements, obviously, which I think that they are two separate elements, and this is why it's so hard to find a good go-to-market engineer today, right? You need someone that wants to get into the tools, wants to set up these systems, has the patience to upload data, scrape data, quality check, and then set up these workflows. But then you also need someone that actually does understand the reason why they're doing the thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of go-to-market engineers that don't know go-to-market.
Yeah.
And so that means like they don't know what they're building and why they're building. They're just building something.
Yeah.
And so what I think a good go-to-market engineer is someone that has commercial acumen, understands the workflows they're trying to build and the reasons why they're building them. Because from there, once you understand why you're building it, then building out these workflows become easier.
Got it. Yep.
So a go-to-market engineer for me is someone that can build, get stuck into the systems and the tooling such as the CRM system, using AI, using Clay, etc., and then understands the go-to-market piece as well.
Okay. And one of the things we're keen on the pod to explore is like how people are actually using AI to do these things. So you're obviously using Clay, but how are you using Clay, and what other kind of tooling are you using to drive that demand for your customers?
Yeah, so we use Clay as obviously the core fundamental behind everything.
Yeah.
What we're finding is the next piece, which is the AI piece, is using the AI models on top of the data.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of the exercises that we do with a lot of our clients is we map your entire TAM, upload that into Clay, and then using AI on top of those accounts, we start to understand those businesses and the reasons why we want to reach out to those businesses.
Yeah.
So what we find is we're using OpenAI to really scrape a lot of the data, get a lot of the data. We use Claude, which is for the copywriting piece, the message suggestion, the analysis of the data.
Okay.
And then we use Perplexity for research, where we want to find key facts that are reliable. Because if you're using OpenAI within Clay, for example, it may hallucinate, find data that doesn't exist. And the worst thing that can happen is you give your sales team data that's inaccurate, they don't believe in it, and they go back to what they're doing before.
Yeah.
And so we use Clay, Claude for copywriting, OpenAI for scraping data, and Perplexity for referencing live facts such as earnings, etc.
Yeah. Okay. And what's to stop, as AI evolves and it potentially becomes easier, what's to stop people just doing that themselves? Because I know some AEs and BDRs that have actually started to try and test and play with some of that exact technology you've described.
Of course, I think as a sales leader, one of the things you need to figure out is like, do you want those discrepancies in your team where your best performers doing these things,
Yeah.
and your middle performers and low performers are not doing those things? So as a sales leader, what you should be thinking about is running this as an initiative for the whole team. And if your team want to do their own thing, no problem. But as you as a sales leader need to run this initiative and make sure that you've given the foundation for outreach, for prospecting, and the best possible way. Because we see AEs, there's some wizards out there that are using GPT, that are creating these workflows. But even those workflows, they're limited to them uploading it one by one, right?
Yeah.
So like that's the bottleneck in itself, where you're like, okay, cool, this person has to upload this account, get the data. But then you can remove that bottleneck if you run it as an initiative rather than just an individual, person just going to do their own thing.
Okay, very interesting. And obviously, you're primarily resolving the big challenge about lack of pipeline and needing more leads. Is that even in your own business? What do you see as like the sort of top 2 or 3 challenges that are facing sellers today?
So I think from our perspective, what we're seeing today is like, it does take more volume than it ever did before to get the same amount of lead or the same quality lead, right?
Yeah.
So for example, the volume and the process that you need today is really hard to like get at scale and to get effectively, right? Because if I give this lead list, let's say if I give the same lead list to the AE 3-4 years ago, they would convert and they wouldn't even need this AI because everyone was just responding, everyone was in buying mode. Mm-hmm. But now like you need a bigger lead list, more data to really get the same results. So what we're doing is just giving the sales team that efficiency to be able to process more leads, to process more accounts, to understand why to reach out to the accounts, and then allow them to action that. So to answer your question, pipeline is the thing that we always struggle with, and every business is struggling with right now, unless you're an AI business where you're just getting inbound leads left, right, and center.
Yeah, you found that niche.
Yeah, exactly. Because I had my younger brother. He set up just an ad hoc recruitment, ATS.
Okay.
And just as a side hobby, and he gets this inbound lead from an enterprise company. Okay. And just because they were Googling for stuff. So it depends on what space you're in. So if you're not lucky enough to be in that space, you're gonna have to do your most the biggest effort.
Yeah.
So pipeline, and then also one thing that I think a lot of businesses struggle is harnessing the data that they have effectively. So there's a lot of data in the sales rep's mind, in their processes, in the call intelligence, transcripts, etc. So how do they utilize that to go back to their prospecting and become more effective?
Okay. So that's kind of a sort of skill improvement, or finding the sort of gaps in the selling process and identifying risks and things. Is that where you?
It's more so from just come back into the ICP stuff.
Yeah.
So like, hey, if you go back into your call transcripts, understand why your customer's looking to buy today, and then you can map that back to your sales process, which is like, okay, this person, this account, this is the reason why. How do we find more of them?
Okay.
And but back in the day, that was harder because you have to sit down, do a pipeline review. The data will get lost, etc. But now with call transcription, you can actually harness that and put it back into your prospecting process.
Okay. So, and are they the big two you see in terms of the sort of the ICP and that personalized messaging and yeah?
Yes, and just really understanding your own data and making sure that you have your. As another point actually, which is the data foundations. Like there's a lot of businesses, you go into this CRM, accounts are missing domains.
Yeah.
Contacts, there's no first name, there's no, making sure that you have that foundation in place, because data foundation is really essential today when it comes to go to market, and that's why we really focus on this data piece as well.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But you're helping companies to build that afresh and then validate it with tools like Perplexity and so on as well.
Yeah. And we like to sit down with the sellers themselves, right? I've been in their shoes, so I love to ask them, hey, when you find an account, tell me everything that you do step by step. And that's the homework everyone should be doing with their best sellers. Like, walk me through every day what you're doing day to day. Like, how do you think about things? And then that's the unique data that Perplexity is not going to give you, OpenAI is not going to give you, ChatGPT, etc. You're not going to get that from any of these AI models because they're in your sales rep's mind.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you think AI is going to impact sellers? Because you're going to have some that you've just described there that are keen to adopt, maybe some that less keen to kind of look at new practices, etc. How do you see sales evolving over the next 3-5 years?
So I think it was going to go down two angles, and I think there's going to be no middle ground anymore, where it's going to be like your super relationship-led seller who has a really good network, who's building network, who's probably building a presence on LinkedIn, for example, where they're seen to be the person or they're known to be the person.
Yeah.
And so they can attract that demand and they can find that demand. And there's obviously going to be the more technical seller, which is understanding the processes, understanding why, doing the hard yards more effectively. And so I think it's going to evolve into a more technical salesperson, especially in the software space.
Yeah.
And then a more relationship-led person for other sectors, and maybe your enterprise roles within SaaS.
Okay. With the technical seller, do you see kind of pre-sales solution consulting merging a little bit into that, or?
I think so. That's going to happen, especially with PLG. Mm-hmm. So as more users just self-sign up, they're going to be in the product. Then once they experience the product, they're not going to ask the salesperson they speak with about walk me through this. They're going to ask, hey, do you have this feature? Do you have this? How does this work? And I feel like, because I had the same thing as well, where it's once you go into that PLG motion, buyers are more educated today. Your tool, they're going to get stuck in already. So half of the discovery questions you're going to do in terms of, how you're looking for, what you're looking for, etc., that's going to be gone because they're going to be in your product. They need to know, does your product do the thing that they need?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's how I think it's going to evolve, because everything's going to more self-sign up now. I can't remember the last time I spoke to a salesperson myself in terms of the products that I've used. I've signed up to everything myself, got involved, and then I'll contact someone if I get to that point.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting point in itself, isn't it? So you're contacting a salesperson where you're sort of 90%, if not 100%, in the examples you've just given, in the buying process. So I think obviously that's a big evolution, isn't it? In that customers are going to contact us much later in the process. And I guess what you're doing is getting there early, identifying customers with similar problems and hitting them with a personalised story that could have an impact or could resonate to try and drive new leads and opportunities. Is that probably going full circle? But is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's a fair summary. And I just think a key thing, which is, I don't think it's ignored. Everyone's aware of it, but I don't know if anyone's doing anything about it, which is the buyer awareness.
Mm.
Do you know, like, okay, yeah, we know our buyers are more aware, but let's still do the same thing we were doing before.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So then it's like, okay, well, I don't think people have changed their sales process into the buyer process.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm starting to be a bit bigger on, is like, hey, what does the buying process look like? How do I increase my buyer's confidence with every step that they take with me, rather than try and walk them through my sales process?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I heard some numbers again lately where someone was saying that 80% of sellers are spending their time with 3% of the customers where they've identified they've got a problem, they're in the market for a solution, and there's a 97% that's classically called like blue ocean, and no one's playing in there. But obviously, if you've got the personalised outreach or you're more proactive about accessing those clients, it's game changing, isn't it? So
yeah, and I think one thing that I'm starting to push myself internally within the business is like, what is the business use case that we're reaching out for? What are the things that we're trying to reach out for? Because in our case, what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand from the account perspective, okay, how many AEs do they have from what we can find?
Yeah.
Where are those AEs based? Okay, well, they're based in the UK, so they get paid, let's say, an average of 60K salary a year, right? Well, how much time do you think that 60K salary a year is being spent on manual research?
Mm.
Okay, let's say that 25%. Then how many sellers do they have? Okay, then times that by 5, times that by 12, and then what we're able to find is actually based on the account, we know how much revenue we're saving with our services. So when we go in with a message, we're way more researched with a solid value proposition, and luckily today that's what they're thinking about. So it ties in really well.
Okay, so going back on your early sales experience, you're using kind of medic pain-based selling by default. Is that deliberate that you're using that approach?
It's just I think it's the sales fundamentals. So it's just like, I think I don't think of it like that. I just think of it as like, hey, what is the key thing that we're moving? And then as I work backwards, then it ties in with those key points. Yeah,
and I think in fact that's going to be a much more natural sales engagement anyway, isn't it? If you're doing it in a consultative manner in the way you've just described, and like the sort of the toolkit, from a salesperson's perspective, obviously used to be LinkedIn Sales Navigator and so on. How do you see that changing with the sort of tools you've described and things like deal intelligence and forecast accuracy capabilities that products are having now?
So I think from a data perspective, right, I think you're going to need to have multiple data providers. Mm-hmm. So we use like all of them, right? But what we like to see is based on the customer, what data provider do you need? We had one customer that was selling like an IT software, IT hardware, but they were targeting insurance companies. What we found is actually, I don't think Sales Navigator is a good thing for you as a data provider, maybe for finding contacts. But what you need is a list of directories.
Yeah.
You want to go and find all the registered insurance brokers in the UK and create that list yourself, and then find the contacts after. So what we're finding is that how do we create people a custom database based on what their persona is? So if I'm selling to SaaS organizations, I'm going to need a Crunchbase license.
Yeah.
Crunchbase has all the SaaS companies, and you'll find and the best data there. And then what we do is once we identify the right provider, and if you're a small business, you can get away with like an Apollo license where the value is high for the price that you're paying. So if I was starting again, I'd get an Apollo license in my case.
Yeah.
And then maybe a Sales Navigator once I can justify that, because Apollo will cover that core fundamentals. It's going to miss 20% of it, but you're not going to need that.
Yeah.
So once you identify the provider, so if you're a small business, Apollo, then you need to understand as a small business or as a individual, do you want to do outreach manually yourself, or are you trying to automate all of it? If you want to do it manually yourself, then you use tools like Lemlist, which allow you to basically provide that cadence flow to structure your prospecting.
That was what, Lemlist.
Lemlist, yep.
Yeah.
So that will structure your cadence.
Yeah.
If you're looking for mass outreach, use one of the tools like Instantly or Smart Lead, which will just automate as much outreach as possible. Based on your product, based on the kind of ACV, etc. So you may want to do things manually, or you may want to go fully automated. But for me, to go fully automated, your value proposition needs to be so clear and so strong that the other person on the other side doesn't care if it's an AI email.
Yeah.
Do you know? So if you have to have such a strong value proposition that they don't care it's AI, they care that it's solving the problem that they have today.
Yeah. But obviously it needs to have, the natural language, the name
Of course.
correct, and some of the
Yeah, of course.
That's
That's
you
the
describe the fundamentals. And
the fundamentals. Yeah. So beyond, once you get that, once you make sure that it sounds human,
yeah,
then you want to make sure the value proposition is strong. But what we found is ourselves, like we've done some of the crazy AI, the trigger-based workflows, etc. for some clients, hasn't worked. And we've done no AI for other clients and it's worked. So what we found is it does come down to that value proposition, making sure that, first of all, like the people you're reaching out to, do they have that pain?
Yeah. So I suppose there'll be some people listening, and I don't just mean my mum and your mum or whatever, but I do, hopefully there'll be a few more people listening than that might think, well, hold on, we're just creating more noise. So I guess to stand out from the noise, it's that personalization and the value message, unless I'm missing anything else.
And the list and the accounts. That's why it's really important to make sure that, coming back to that business use case, like, hey, do these accounts, do we know that they might be experiencing that problem?
Yeah.
Do we know that persona is experiencing that problem? So because sometimes, or a lot of the times actually, the list is the message in itself as well. Making sure that that list has a story, has a reason why you're reaching out, and then everything else will come naturally.
Perfect. And what's the aspiration for you and for your business? What's your goal?
So we're going to start small and be the biggest and the best in London. So we're going to be the biggest, best go-to-market operations company in London. Then we want to go to New York and expand there. But right now, I think obviously there's a lot of negativity around London and the UK, etc. But there still is a lot of opportunity here. Like the aspiring entrepreneurs are not leaving; they're still staying here. They're still building companies here, and I just think there's such an ecosystem that is being not neglected, but doesn't get the attention it needs. Especially with these go-to-market technologies. In the US, they're far ahead of us. Yeah. But I think the UK has huge potential, especially today with AI, where we're slowly building an advantage there.
Okay. And what's the aim, sort of, ultimately, to sell the business, to float, or whatever? I don't know.
I mean, anyone says that I wouldn't sell probably would be lying. Where it's like, okay, well, if there's a number on the table, let me look at the number. Okay, cool. I think that number looks good, maybe. Yeah. But also, I think in the future as well is to eventually build out a technology based on the problems that I'm experiencing. As
your own proprietary.
Correct. But yeah, I think right now is making sure that we build a solid service, a predictable service, and then once we get that, everything else is a luxury. It would be nice to do.
And I mean, just one area, like some of the things you were describing there in terms of the type of tooling that people should use for outbound list creation, etc. Some of that sort of sits a bit more in the kind of RevOps camp. Where do you see the kind of crossover between go-to-market and RevOps?
It's a really good question. So at the beginning, when we started this, we thought that RevOps are not going to touch this stuff. And they're not going to touch it, but they're needing to do something about it, because all the eyes, including this CEO, is all look at this stuff.
Yeah.
So everyone is looking at this, and now as a RevOps person, you do need to look into this and understand what this looks like. Now, whether you have the capacity is another thing. So if you don't have the capacity and you're focused on building those Salesforce reports and sorting out the fundamentals within there, or orchestrating Stripe into etc., then you're not going to have time. That's where you might look to outsource. But as a RevOps person, they're going to be looking in that direction very soon. And I think what we're seeing today as well is the engagement that we get with RevOps is a lot higher.
Yeah.
Because now the eyes are on them to look into these things.
Okay. So there's an expectation of them to build go-to-market engines, create lead capabilities, etc., and then they're potentially outsourced to you guys or others as well.
Or they just don't have, they know what they need to do, but they don't have the time, the skill set. Or because Clay is a bit of a learning curve, just because it's trial and error. Like you learn by doing with the platform. And same with AI, right? With your prompts, you just have to keep prompting, keep going until you get that perfect prompt. Once you get that perfect prompt, then you understand, okay, I now know how to prompt to keep going. So with AI, it's just whether you have the patience to keep going and going, because you're not going to get it right first time. I didn't get it right first time. I don't know anyone that did get it right first time.
Yeah.
That's the thing with all these processes and these tools. It is trial and error, and it's just whether you have the patience.
Okay, really interesting. And is there kind of you mentioned your brother's an entrepreneur. You've become an entrepreneur. What's the kind of driving motivation for that? Was it a family thing?
No, my dad's a bus driver. Well, he was a bus driver. He was just a bus driver. My mum worked at the supermarket. My brother, he's full-time software engineer, but he just got some side hobbies that he does.
Okay.
After, now and again, but he's not really there yet. For me personally, I was always told that by my family that, hey, you're going to work for yourself one day. You're going to work for yourself. I think they meant it in a different context, but I always had that in my mind. And then when I went into my sales flow, the first company, and saw how it built from 0 to 4 million ARR, then I was like, okay, this was fun. Like, this was amazing. This was like something that you create your own mini universe in some cases. But I realized with the business, right? And so that's what I really loved about it. And I was like, once I saw it in reality, then I was like, okay, this is something that I want to do. Like, I want to build a team. I want to motivate a team. Then from there, I want to build something that is super valuable. Then I want to have like really good branding, etc. Then it's just that universe that really attracted me in building that.
Okay. And that kind of, like I sense like a big sense to like a prove yourself and to be, maybe better than the McKinsey consultants and so on that you came across.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
I mean, I think from school, like I was very like a C grade student. University just about skimmed the 2-1. So education was never really my thing. I think one of the things where, I don't know what's being done about it, but I just think there's some people out there that need to be channeled towards the path that they feel like really strongly about. And whether it's entrepreneurship, because I read somewhere, by the way, like some of the top like funded startups in the world, the co-founders met at university. So then I'm like, okay, what's the universities doing now to keep encouraging that behavior? Because I don't think universities are being like, let's do this on purpose. It's just an accident. But I don't think university schools are encouraging that piece to go and actually focus some time on the thing that really drives you, that really moves you forward. So yeah, that's where it comes from. I think it just comes from feeling a bit like stuck, and then finally finding something that I feel strongly about and feel like, okay, this is something I want to do moving forward.
Triggered some emotion and drive, and okay, no, cool, fascinating. And from your point of view, is there any particular kind of trend out there that you're seeing that no one else is talking about? I'm going back a bit to something more on the tech side.
Yeah, I think it's this call intelligence piece. I don't think businesses are taking a sale from the beginning to the end, taking all the transcripts, and then doing that for 5 deals, and then analyzing what really went on in those deals. Because we've done it for ourselves, and we found a lot of insights. For example, like every time a company that comes with us and the marketing lady comes, there's always an ABM initiative.
Right.
There's always an ABM initiative that they're looking at. They're always struggling with this particular thing. And like, what are those things in your call transcripts that you can map backwards? And so my advice would be is take 5 close-won deals, take your call transcripts from discovery all the way until onboarding.
Yeah.
Don't forget the onboarding, because the onboarding is when they really start to let the guys know. Yeah. And that's where there's a lot of value there in the onboarding call. So don't forget the onboarding call. Do that 5 times, and then prompt AI and be like, hey, what is, from a sales cycles perspective, what is actually the buying process that all these deals went on? Okay, then you map that back to your sales process. Does that make sense? Does it not make sense? Then another thing you want to prompt is like, okay, what were the buying triggers that initiated these deals that I need to look for when prospecting?
Yeah.
And then it'll give you these triggers. And then you're, okay, cool. These are the things to look out for when you're prospecting accounts. And then from there, you have literally like an AI coach or AI sales analyst that will help you with whatever you need, and with those key resources that you need.
Okay, no, I think that's a really great idea. I think there's so much, going back to your point, there's so much data in the transcripts and in the information you're holding on, sales interactions, and are we really using it or leveraging it? And I definitely don't think we learn enough from deals won and deals lost. And really good tip.
And just on that point, because I learned that from my experience at Salesflow, we had a lot of inbound demand, but those conversations helped me go outbound. Some people don't have the luxury to have that. You may not have inbound leads, and I understand that. But when you do get on calls, so make sure that you're listening on those calls. Because with Salesforce, I had inbound leads, and those inbound leads would tell me so much information that I couldn't find online. Like, you can't Google like CRO top 5 pain points they're facing today. Like, you're just going to get the same thing that everyone else is going to give you.
Yeah.
But you speak to a CRO and ask them what their top 5 pain points are. They're going to give you something you're not going to find on Perplexity, on Google, or whatever. So that's why it's really important.
Okay, no, fantastic. And you mentioned obviously Salesflow, but also Playbook Agency and so on. Do you have like a single deal that you're most proud of?
So it's actually one of the deals we closed recently, which was Curvo.ai. And the reason why I'm really proud of that is because me and my co-founder, what we've done is we sat back, because when we were going through this process of like understanding ICP, we sat back and redone this whole ICP work.
Yeah.
And this was something that when we run this deal through, our new, let's say, buying process, it just all clicked. Like, it clicked from the discovery, clicked from the next step, the ROI use case, and then the onboarding, and then going into the delivery now, where it just clicked really well. And that's why I'm proud of it, because actually it was good to see the things that we're preaching into reality and actually see it work.
Yeah.
That's something I'm proud of, really, and that happened recently.
Okay, fantastic. And anything particularly you did in that deal that sort of stood out, that why you won it? And
so I think it was in terms of the discovery. Luckily, like we had a person that understood what we did, understood what they're looking to solve.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think what we really liked was how we articulated the ROI. So one of the things is like, how do you articulate ROI on these things where sometimes we're a bit too far away from close one, So then it's like, okay, well, there's steps in the journey to get to close one that we are able to reverse engineer. So first of all, let's say we load up your accounts, we load up your time, we do all the research. On the time saved, I know it's a weak one, but on the time saved, you save X amount.
Yeah.
Then from there, what happens from there is the pipeline metrics will start to open up. And then from there, then you start to close deals. So we were able to basically map out in the ROI process how we can generate value and show them the value, rather than just being focused on the close one deals. Because as an agency, sometimes you are a bit too far away from that.
Yeah.
And if you do get held to that, then you're gonna have to wait 12 months to see results, and it's gonna be really hard.
Yeah, you need some wins of an early indicators to look for, and that could well be the time saving initially, and then close one in the latter stages as well.
Great.
So yeah, cool. Really interesting. Been an excellent conversation, Leo. If anybody wants to get hold of you, how do they do that?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Posting all the time there. Email me, whatever. Just whatever you need, let me know. Happy to help, because I'm really, really passionate on making sure that people understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So find me on LinkedIn, drop me a message, and I'm happy to help.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate
Cheers.
it.
Thanks.